If you are a person who is experiencing a manager who is toxic and narcissistic behavior, and they're a narcissist, then you want to be sure to set very clear boundaries emotionally. Very clear boundaries emotionally. Nothing gets settled successfully before emotions have calmed down. Emotions have to come down so that you can think clearly, make the right choices, and say the right things in the right scenarios. Set clear emotional boundaries in here. Gotta know yourself.
Here we grow again. Our hearts on the mend. What I want is what I want. Soft spaces.
Welcome to Softspaces Podcast, where I share a little bit of me to connect with a little bit of you so that together we can create a community of wholeness where our unmuted voices, our authentic self, can thrive, can heal in every area of our lives. My name is Yolanda Lewis, and I am your host. Today we're talking about recognizing narcissistic leadership. Narcissistic leadership is a form of leadership that, of course, is toxic. We know that. But you need to know what it looks like so you know how to move around it. And if you are that narcissistic leader, you need help and you're not going to ask for it innately. You're not going to ask for it, which is why this podcast exists. This is your help and this is your way to get the help you need through awareness of what is really going on inside of you and how you're coming off to your team. So when you think of a narcissistic leader, what you might find is a very common example. Let me give you an example of what that might look like. A narcissistic leader is going to look for a lot of attention. They're going to look for a lot of attention. They're going to put everything on them and minimize the team's contribution. They are going to dismiss or even humiliate others to make themselves look and feel good. And the idea of narcissism, I've heard it said that if you're once narcissistic, you're always narcissistic. And the more that I learn about psychoeducation and psychotherapy and psychodynamics, the more I am agreeing with the opposite. I believe narcissism is something that you can grow from because you allow yourself to develop. Just like a child. Children, you can look at children as narcissistic. They are self-centered. Everything is about them. They want all the attention. They have an overinflated sense of self, right? They think of themselves bigger than maybe that they are, little pint-sized folks. And we dismiss that because that's kids, that's children, and they are learning how to adjust themselves in the world that they live in. And a part of that is knowing how to or learning how to navigate through acclimation of who you really are. It's learning how to discover who you really are. If you can co-sign with the idea that a child can be trapped in an adult body, then you can also understand how narcissism can develop in adults in the same way that you can understand how, as the narcissistic person adjusts, acclimates, and gets to know who they really are and understand their true value in an organization and in the world that surrounds them, then they can also mature into embracing the ideas of others. They can also adopt a new way of looking at the world just because they grew up. There are adults, even as leaders, who just need to grow up. Let me give you a real-time example. So you know some of my story in that I was once in corporate America. I was a consultant. I've always been in the consulting space, corporate America. I was there in the banking world. I was there before I became a publisher and before I became a consultant for psychoed. And so in that space of corporate, I had a manager, and I had a lot of great managers and a lot of great mentors, which is where the culmination of this episode came from, because it's important to highlight when it's not really good and not really supportive. So this one particular manager, I was in my dream job and I had a lot to learn. Even though it was my dream role, I had so much to learn, so much to grow into in that role. This manager and the whole team was really taking a chance on me, and I'm glad that they did, because I grew leaps and bounds, not only in my professional development, but also in my character as a person. So this manager that I had grown, I had made mistakes, and, learning the ropes of how to navigate and really be a good consultant for our client that we had. And I won the client over. When I came on board, there was a lot of consternation between the team and the client. And over time, I was able to win the client over because I allowed them to feel heard. I allowed them to feel seen. I allowed them to be able to feel like their ideas mattered. So it was time for feedback from the client to go in my review. I was up for promotion. Didn't get the promotion. Instead, I got a lot of negative feedback. And at the time, I felt it was unwarranted, but I didn't know how to navigate this space. He literally picked apart everything. Well, fast forward, I met with the client. It was our normal meetings with the client. And they said, "How did your review go?" And I was like, well, looks like I've got some things to work on. And this is some of the things I got to work on. And they said, "Well, didn't you hear our feedback?" I said, "Well, no. What did you say?" And they said, "Oh, we told your manager, SVP, that you deserved promotion. You turned the relationship around. We were so grateful to have you a part of the greater team because you've made such an impact, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." And so I said, "Wow, I thank you for that feedback. I hadn't heard it." They proceeded to tell me that the manager told them, "That's great, but I'm not going to put that in there," and thought it was funny, and literally did exclude it to where I didn't know. So now I'm in a situation where I know something I'm not supposed to know about something that affects me greatly. The manager continued to proceed to squash a lot of my ideas, only to find later on my way out the door, they were doing things that I had recommended 3 years prior. Complete disregard for my value, complete disregard for my contribution, complete and utter humiliation in front of the client. I was humiliated to still be there in front of the client, knowing that my team, we're going to say Team Red and Team Black, Team Black was talking trash about Team Black to Team Red. It was crazy to me. It was toxic, and I didn't know how to navigate it. Narcissistic leadership. That is what it looks like. And the disadvantage to narcissistic leadership is that that team lost a good employee. They lost a good consultant, because I couldn't stand to stay there in such toxicity, right? It was pulling down my morale, making me feel like less than, inferior. It was making me feel like I didn't belong, because even after all of my efforts and all of my growth, and I finished all kinds of degrees, and to make myself fit in this job, to only be talked about amongst my peers, humiliation like I could never imagine. And at the time, I didn't know how to navigate through it. Today, I do, and I want to help you if you're in a situation where you are sitting under or being led under a narcissistic leader. And this goes across levels. This is not just about a lower level, higher level ideal. As I mentioned, this manager was a senior VP in the company. That's pretty high up, right? His peers were executives. And this is the behavior that was being exhibited at this level. Very disappointing. So if you are under this type of leadership as a senior leader, or as any type of leadership, you're a manager or a senior manager, whatever it is, you're a consultant too. and your manager is toxic in the sense of narcissistic leadership, then I want to give you some pointers. If you are a leader who is narcissistic, and don't worry, I won't tell anybody right now, but you know that you and I know we're talking to you. You and I know this is you. This scenario, it's you. You've done it. And maybe you didn't realize the impact at the time. Maybe you didn't realize how it would affect the employee. They just left and they went on to better and great, and they didn't hold anything back against you, and that was wonderful. However, you know that's you. I've got something for you too. So first up, if you are that person who is in a situation where their leadership is narcissistic, here's what I recommend. If you think you might be under leadership that is narcissistic, here's how you can know that to be true. Here's what you look for. One of the things you look for is a need to be admired. Everything is about how great that they are. They need you to say that. They can't move beyond the meeting agenda before someone says that. They might also lack empathy. You might find that they are lacking considering other people's feelings. That's what empathy means in that corporate space, in that environment where there are leadership dynamics. You'll find that they have a little bit of insensitivity to what's going on. They don't connect to the fact that if an employee can only leave 5 minutes before their time off, it would make a difference on the back end to them not having to pay for extra in childcare. Lack of empathy. Okay, you'll see that as well. Another trait you might see is the humiliation factor, where they do everything in their power to make you feel inferior, to make them feel superior at the cost of you feeling inferior. And in that same vein, the complexities of that inferiority complex can show up in two dimensions. The first dimension is where that leader feels inferior. And so what they do to try to get through that is mask themselves with the idea of transformation. They're always in a book. They're always at a class. And these things are important for leadership development. I mean, where it's obsessive with the mask of self-improvement. So they're saying they're self-improving, but really they're covering up the fact that they feel inferior. First is the covering up of the inferiority and masking it with self-development. The other dimension is where they make you feel horrible because they're trying to make themselves feel so good because they feel so horrible. They have an exaggerated sense of their skill set. They have an exaggerated sense of what they can perform or what they can do. They talk a big game and most often undeliver, but they talk a big, big game. That's dimension 2 of how inferiority can get covered up and show up in the workplace. So what can you do about it? Well, there are a couple of things. If you are a person who is experiencing a manager who is toxic and narcissistic behavior, and they're a narcissist, then you want to be sure to set very clear boundaries emotionally. Very clear boundaries emotionally. You want to be sure to know where the boundary is for yourself that indicates you are too close to boiling over and maybe coming outside of your professionalism and saying a few things that don't need to get said. So clear boundaries emotionally. You want to make sure to set that and know yourself enough to know when that boundary is almost being crossed, you doing something about it. Maybe you're shifting position energy. You might need to have a doodle something that is right by, because this could happen in real time in a meeting. They are setting you off and your emotional boundaries are alarming that you're close to the edge, you're close to danger, you're close to explosion. You want to have something close by, make it look like you're taking notes and you just need to doodle, or you can even in that moment journal and express like this is how you're feeling, just so it's out of your head into your hand and off of your heart. And that way, once it gets that movement, because emotions are energy in motion, once that movement is happening, then it's moving away from your mind so you can think clearly. Nothing gets settled successfully before emotions have calmed down. Emotions have to come down so that you can think clearly, make the right choices, and say the right things in the right scenarios. So that first tip is for you to set clear emotional boundaries in here. Gotta know yourself. The second thing that you can do is stick to the facts. When you are being approached or engaging in conversation where a narcissistic leader is looking to minimize your contribution and totally humiliate your intelligence in a particular moment, stick to the facts. Facts can't be argued. Now, to a narcissistic person, they probably could find a way. But sticking to the facts will help you to stick closer to the idea, closer to the point at hand, so that you can get through it. And the third thing that you can do is rally support, not against the leader. That will make you look bad in the long run. That will make you look bad that you ganged up against the leader. But rally support that will help you to grow. Surround yourself with people who have higher mindsets so they can help you to navigate through this moment. And in turn, that helps you to develop and it expands your network so that if you do need to leave that position because it is just too much and just too darn toxic for you to stay there and have your well-being at risk, then you have a full breadth of network that you can reach out to help you to make your next best move. Now, if you are the toxic leader, if you are the narcissistic leader, I've got some tips for you too. The first thing you can do is self-reflect. And in your self-reflection, what you're looking for is, where are the ways that narcissistic behavior is a reflection of your inner child? Where is the behavior of you needing and craving attention to the point where you're willing to humiliate others, a reflection of what you didn't get in your childhood that is now raising its hand to say, I need help? Where is that? Reflect on that and point out where that is, what areas. And then you look for our workshop. That's one of the tools you can take advantage of because it is exclusively for leaders. And we talk about where you can navigate through the help that you really, truly need without exposing yourself. You may feel a way because you're an adult, right? You're not incompetent. You're just needing a little re-engineering of your being, of your qualities, of your characteristics, so that you can be a better leader for your teams and for the organization that you represent. The other thing that you can do is to seek help from trusted peers. The honesty of trusted peer feedback will help you to, you're not going to feel good about it. It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel a little bit, you'll feel a little bit of discomfort. However, because you know it's coming from a trusted place, someone who really truly cares about your well-being, who really truly cares about how you navigate and show up in the world, it makes a world of difference. So I ask you to look at your circle and see who you have that you can trust to give you honest feedback and pointers on how you can be a better leader for yourself in the presence of your peers, as well as for your team and your organization. And then finally, commit to the growth. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to humble you a little bit, but it's also going to be very, very good for your future. The future you is already so proud and so thankful that you took the step to commit to doing something about this gap in your personal development. Whether you are the leader or you are the person under the leadership, is breathe. At the end of every episode, we take a moment to reflect through breath and allow that breath to give us life for new ideas, life for new opportunities, and life for new experiences that are better than where we are right now. In this breath that we do together, we take 2 deep breaths in and 2 exhales, and we sit in that breath. And in that breath, your body might say or feel, in that breath, your body wants to make a sound. That's okay. Let it. You might even feel like you want to yawn. That's another expression of breath, moving energy around in the body so that we can experience something new, so that we can experience something fresh, and so we can grow to new heights and new levels and make an impact in the world, being our most genuine and authentic self. That's what the soft space is. It's the space where you get to be vulnerable. It's the space where it's okay to be yourself, flawed, fabulous, and healing. All of that is okay to be in the soft space. Create more soft spaces in your world, and we can start by doing that right now together. So, welcome to the soft space. Let's take a deep breath in. One more breath. And exhale. Feel your shoulders drop. Feel the weight of your thoughts dissipate. And connect to your breath. Let's breathe again through the nose. One more breath. And exhale through the mouth. I want to thank you for joining me in this soft space. If you feel you need to continue breathing, please do so. And in the meantime, I'll see you again in the next episode. Take care and God bless.